Y'all, Lil Durk just broke his silence on the 50 Cent King Von documentary, and this time, he didn't hold back. No vague captions. No soft, respect the legacy talk. He came direct, and according to what's circulating, he named names. For months, the streets have been watching 50 Cent move closer and closer to Von's story, dropping hints, fueling rumors, and letting the internet run wild with talk of a full project. Most people expected Durk to stay quiet, especially with everything else on his plate. Instead, he responded, and the way he did it has the entire culture arguing overnight. Some are calling it loyalty. Some are calling it a warning. Others say it's the first real crack in a relationship that was already under pressure. But one thing is clear. When Durk decided to speak on 50's involvement with Von's name, he didn't come to play. What exactly did he say? Who did he call out? And why does this response feel like it's about way more than just a documentary? The messages are out, the reactions are flying, and the fallout is only getting started. Hold on tight. This one is heavy. The moment Lil Durk's response started circulating, the timeline split in half. One side was refreshing every page, trying to find the full context. The other side was already picking sides. For a long time, Durk had stayed measured whenever 50 Cent's name came up next to King Von's. He would post tributes, keep Von's memory alive through music, and let the noise stay in the background. That approach made this sudden directness land even harder. According to the posts and clips that spread within hours, Durk didn't just address the idea of a documentary. He addressed the people pushing it, the timing, and what he sees as outsiders trying to control a story that still belongs to the people who actually lived it. The language was sharp. The energy was protective. And the part that sent fans into a frenzy was the section where he allegedly pointed at specific moves and specific voices that had been circling Von's name for clout and content. In hip-hop, naming names doesn't always mean dropping government names in a caption. Sometimes it means making it obvious who you're talking about without leaving room for confusion. That's the lane Durk appeared to take. People who have followed the relationship between these camps immediately started connecting the dots. Old interviews, old warnings, old moments where 50 had spoken on Chicago artists, ODF, and the difference between living it and packaging it. The timing made everything louder. 50 Cent has spent years turning real street narratives into long-running television power. When rumors of a Von-focused project started gaining real traction, many in the culture saw it as inevitable. A story with that much pain, loyalty, violence, and unfinished business was always going to attract someone who knows how to turn testimony into prime time. What nobody fully predicted was Durk deciding to draw a line in public. For the people closest to Von, the response carried extra weight. Durk and Von weren't just label mates. They moved like family. The twin language wasn't marketing. It was how they spoke about each other while Von was still here. So, when Durk finally addressed the idea of someone outside that circle shaping the final public version of Von's life, a lot of fans heard it as more than industry politics. They heard it as a brother refusing to let the story get rewritten without a fight. Of course, not everyone saw it that way. Almost immediately, another wave of voices pushed back. Some argued that any major project about Von would keep his name alive for a new generation. Others said Durk was reacting from emotion instead of strategy, especially given his own legal situation. A smaller but louder group claimed the response was calculated, a way to remind the culture who actually stood next to Von when it mattered. What made the moment impossible to ignore was how fast the old history got dragged back up. Clips of 50 talking about authenticity and drill, old comments about artists who rap the life versus live it, and previous moments where he publicly advised Durk about watching his own circle all resurfaced within hours. The internet treated it like evidence. Whether those past comments were connected to the current documentary rumors or not almost didn't matter. The culture had already decided this was personal. Inside Chicago, the conversation carried a different temperature. For many, Von's story still feels local before it feels global. The idea of a New York veteran with a full media machine taking the lead on that story triggered protective instincts that go beyond music. Durk's response gave those instincts a public voice. Suddenly, people who had been quiet about the documentary rumors felt permission to speak. Old affiliates started posting. Fan pages that usually stay in tribute mode switched to defense mode. The algorithm rewarded every sharp caption. Yet through all the noise, one fact stayed consistent. Durk had finally stopped letting the conversation happen around him. He stepped into it. And once a figure with his platform does that, the entire frame of the story changes. What was previously 50 Cent might do a Von project became Durk just answered 50's moves on Von's name. That shift is permanent. The first 24 hours were pure reaction. The next phase would be harder because now both sides had public positions and the culture was watching to see who would speak next. As the full scope of Durk's response settled in, the discussion moved past the initial shock and into the deeper question of ownership. Who gets to tell King Von's story? The people who were there or the people with the biggest platform and the cleanest production budget? Durk's words, as they circulated, framed the issue as more than business. He positioned the documentary talk as another example of the industry waiting until an artist is gone to decide the narrative is valuable enough to package. That angle hit hard with fans who have watched posthumous catalogs get stretched, repackaged, and sometimes distorted for years after the artist can no longer object. By speaking up, Durk was effectively saying the story still has living guardians, and those guardians were not about to stay silent while outsiders drafted the final version. 50 Cent's camp did not issue an immediate detailed reply. In typical fashion, the silence itself became content. Some interpreted it as confidence, the posture of a man who has survived every public war and still ends up controlling the screen. Others saw it as strategic quiet, the kind that lets the other side talk until the culture gets tired. A few voices close to the television side of the business suggested that any real project would move forward regardless of public objections, because the numbers on Von's name still make sense on paper. That cold industry logic only made Durk's emotional response look more human to his supporters. In their eyes, this wasn't about blocking a documentary. It was about refusing to let the pain get turned into just another episode. Von's death still sits heavy in certain circles. The idea of watching it dramatized, scored, and released on a streaming schedule feels different when you actually knew the person. Durk's decision to name the energy behind the project gave that discomfort a clear target. The named names part of the response is what kept the story trending past the first news cycle. Even without every identity spelled out in capital letters, the culture is fluent in coded speech. People understood who was being addressed. Old interviews got clipped. Old live streams got re-examined. Any moment where 50 had spoken about Chicago talent, about ODF, or about the gap between the streets and the boardroom was suddenly treated as foreshadowing. The internet is very good at building timelines after the fact. On the ground, the reaction exposed existing fractures. Some of Von's blood relatives and longtime friends have always been more open to larger platforms telling the story, believing it could protect the legacy and generate real resources for the family. Others have remained deeply skeptical of any project that isn't fully controlled by the people who buried him. Durk's public stance aligned him clearly with the protective side. That alignment matters, because for years he has been the most visible living bridge to Von's memory. When that bridge speaks, the culture listens. At the same time, the risk was obvious. Public conflict with a figure like 50 Cent never stays small. 50 has built an entire second career on turning tension into content. If the situation escalates, the same machine that could package Von's story could also package the beef around it. Some fans already began warning Durk to be careful with the next move, arguing that silence might have been safer given everything else surrounding him. Others insisted that silence was exactly what allowed the rumors to grow this large in the first place. The split in opinion revealed something larger about how the culture now handles legacy. There is the emotional camp that wants the story protected at all costs. There is the pragmatic camp that believes big platforms are inevitable and the only question is who gets the check. And there is the cynical camp that assumes every tribute, every documentary, and every celebration of life is just another revenue stream with better lighting. Durk's response forced people to pick which camp they were standing in. Meanwhile, older clips of Durk speaking about Von continued to recirculate. The emotional posts right after the death, the songs, the moments where he made it clear this wasn't content for him. Those clips served as evidence for his supporters. They argued that a man who grieved this publicly has earned the right to draw boundaries when the industry comes knocking years later. By the end of the second day, the original response had been screenshotted, stitched, slowed down, and turned into reaction content across every platform. The documentary itself was no longer the only story. The reaction had become the story. And in hip-hop, once that switch happens, it rarely switches back cleanly. Lil Durk has put a public marker down. 50 Cent has so far answered mainly with the same quiet confidence that has defined most of his later career. In the space between those two postures, the culture is doing what it always does, choosing sides, inventing new details, and waiting for the next move that will either calm the situation or set it on fire. For many fans, the core issue is no longer whether a King Von documentary gets made. The core issue is who is allowed to shape the tone of that story. Durk's response framed the current rumors as an attempt by outside forces to claim narrative authority over a life that still feels unfinished to the people closest to it. Whether that framing is fair or not almost doesn't matter anymore. Enough people believe it that the pressure is real. There is also the practical reality of Durk's own situation. Speaking this directly while dealing with legal pressure is a calculated risk. Some see it as proof that the loyalty is genuine, that even with everything on his plate, he still puts Von's name first. Others worry it creates new enemies at the worst possible time. Both readings can exist at once. The streets have always understood that protecting a fallen brother's name can come with costs. 50 Cent, for his part, has never been easily moved by public pressure. His entire brand is built on the idea that he turns opposition into fuel. If the documentary project is real and already in motion, a public objection from Durk may simply become another chapter in the marketing. If the project was still in the rumor stage, the response might force a quieter recalculation behind the scenes. From the outside, nobody knows which version is true. That uncertainty is keeping the temperature high. The deeper cultural question this moment raises is one the genre has been dancing around for years. What do we actually owe the dead when their stories become profitable? Von's music was already testimony. Turning that testimony into a polished documentary or series creates a second layer of interpretation that the artist can no longer correct. Durk's intervention is an attempt to keep some of that interpretive power inside the original circle. Whether that attempt succeeds will say a lot about how much leverage living loyalty still holds against industry machinery. In Chicago, the conversation remains more personal than abstract. For a lot of people there, this isn't content, it's memory. The idea that the most painful chapters of Von's life could be scored, scripted, and released on a schedule feels different when you still drive past the places he used to be. Durk's decision to speak gave those feelings a public champion. That matters in a culture that often feels like its stories get extracted and sold without the community getting the final word. At the same time, there's a limit to how long pure emotion can hold the line. Streaming platforms, production companies, and established producers have resources and patience that street loyalty doesn't always match. If the project has real institutional backing, public statements may only delay it. If it doesn't, Durk's response might be enough to make the wrong people hesitate. The next few weeks will reveal which of those realities we're living in. What is already certain is that the relationship between these two camps has changed tone. Before this, the connection between 50 Cent and the Von story existed mostly in rumors, old comments, and fan speculation. Now it exists in a public exchange of energy. Even if both sides eventually step back, the record of this moment will remain. Future conversations about any Von project will have to account for the fact that Durk stood up and drew a line. In the end, this isn't just about one documentary. It's about who gets to close the book on a life that still feels open to the people who loved him. Lil Durk just made his position clear. The rest of the culture is now deciding whether to respect that position or push past it. Either way, King Von's name is once again at the center of a storm he can no longer speak into. And the people still here are showing exactly how far they're willing to go to control the echo. Do you think Lil Durk was right to respond this hard to the 50 Cent Von documentary talk, or should he have stayed quiet? And when he named the energy behind it, did that feel like loyalty, or did it feel like the start of something bigger? Drop your thoughts below. No filter. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. If either side fires back, or if more details drop, we're covering every second of it. This story is far from over.